Yeah, is the loop dead in the future of ad serving in a programmatic digital out of home? Spicy topic for end of the day session here. Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Mike Neal. I run supply at Perion, and we're joined by Sam and Nick here, who I think you all know. And yeah, today we're here to discuss really what I think is the start of a global conversation, a potential global trend about the future of the loop. So we have both the supply and demand side representation here to take a closer look at that. And I don't think the answer is quite so simple. So hopefully we'll dive in a bit here. And so far today, I think it's interesting that we're sort of towards the tail end of the session, because I think a lot of what has been discussed so far sort of summarizes why we're talking about this topic in the first place. We've heard a lot of digital first and digital forward concepts around DCO, measurement, audience first buying, etc. And my belief is that in the context of a loop or a schedule-based buying and selling system, some of these more digital first, digital forward concepts are a bit harder to implement at scale. So we'll look to dive a bit more into that. So is the loop dead? Let's dive in. So Sam, maybe we'll start with you from the supply side, from Center Group over here. Give us your initial thoughts on the topic. Is the loop dead? Is there a shift happening? What do you think?
Well, thank you. Firstly, I think we need to sort of dig into what it is and why it's there, and we've talked a bit about this in our pre-discussions. But I mean, the loop is really a remnant of scrolling displays, right? Like, I don't know if anybody even still runs those. Maybe they do, but basically that trading model is dictated by the limitations of that particular format. And when we digitized out of home, when the D was added to digital out of home, really that's what was digitized, just that mechanism, right? And so we need to think well beyond that paradigm. And the problem that we have at the moment is that and it's really a challenge for the industry as a whole, is that there's a lot of structural inertia around that model and around that trading model. And if we're going to see that growth that we're talking about in previous sessions to 30%, we need to actually move the trading model itself more towards the impression-based or performance-based metrics. And it's very hard to do that, with that trading model being so dominant. And I think that's a job for both the supply side to do and for agencies and anyone who's in between to really understand why that's beneficial.
Yeah. Nick, initial thoughts?
Look, the loop isn't dead. The loop isn't dying, but it's definitely changing. We're seeing, since I've come into the out-of-home industry about 4 years ago, we've seen this amazing programmatic infrastructure that the three sponsors, thank you to everyone here today, the three sponsors have put together, and they've made it a lot easier to buy out-of-home. I think the loop will not die until all the publishers all get on board, in terms of everybody needs to do it together. One of the things I've noticed in this industry is particularly in out-of-home, TV is very different and radio is very different, but you guys take a big step and then it's little steps. So we saw that with the initial programmatic out-of-home, and we saw that with Move 2.0, and I think the loop might be that next big step that we take down here. To Lambo's point, and Lambo stole a lot of my points too, by the way, but to Lambo's point, we do lead within WPP, that is. Australia does lead in terms of programmatic out-of-home. So if we can do that, we'll be able to see other markets in the world probably jump on that as well.
Yeah. And for your clients and for campaigns that they maybe would like to do, is it hard to implement some of these kind of more digital concepts, using dynamic creative, dynamic data in the context of a loop? Or is there sufficient appetite with what the current systems support today for clients to run what they would like to do from a digital perspective?
Look, short answer is no. Like and it's not a dirty word, omni-channel. I've heard it a couple of times here today already. It's a dirty word, but if you look at it from another point of view, it's another way of pinching money from other channels. Like, this is what you guys should be thinking of. If we can get out of home, moving more away from that loop and look at some sequential marketing, sequential messaging during the day, we'll be able to see that a lot more money come into the out of home industry as well. But to your point, it is hard. Some things like DCO are still very hard to implement. Right. It's really like, I know I've got a few of my trading team here as well. They'll be shaking their head hearing about it because it's really fiddly. If we can get that up and moving, it will help as well.
Yeah. So the topic of, is the loop dead? I think really what we are talking about and what we're seeing is certain publishers going loopless, right? Using ad servers, using header bidders, et cetera, to run a more flexible operation, right, on behalf of their clients. And this is for direct and programmatic. So Sam, going loopless, does that bring more flexibility to how you guys run your operation? What have you seen from the work you've done so far?
Yeah, so we're on that journey. In fact, we're finishing off that journey over the next couple of weeks. So we've escaped kind of the gravity of that particular scheduling paradigm, and the benefits are starting to be seen. And I think we need to be prepared for a future where that's normal, and so we're sort of stepping out maybe ahead of the curve a bit in this market. We were pretty early to programmatic. We've been 100% programmatic for a few years now. And we're preparing ourselves for the ability to trade outside of IO and outside of CPM even. So we've got probably an unusual and fairly unique environment as an owner-operator, at least in this market. And it's important for us to be able to have multiple ways to affect outcomes through our network. And it's not just all, selling ads. We've got our own marketing that we do. We've got retailer relationships that we need to maintain and grow. And our general ethic is that, we do better when our partners do better. And so if we want to be able to bring all of that to life, we need multiple ways to trade. Like, we need ways that we can take advantage of true performance metrics, not proxy performance metrics. And so to unlock that, to unlock the data feeds, to unlock the intelligence of the network, we need to actually really discard the old way of doing things.
Just on that, for some of the marketers in here, what are some of those performance metrics that you're talking about?
Well, I don't know. How many people have sold a campaign in out-of-home based on CPA? Has anybody said...
Where are the thumbs up? And
yeah,
thumbs down?
there's probably no thumbs up, right? So we need to investigate that territory. So I think the slide at the start said you can buy out-of-home 2 ways. I want there to be 5 or 6 ways. Yeah. We're really trying to lean into that territory now and look at what the future could be. Right,
yeah. And Nick, from a client perspective, does having that added flexibility, whether it's in the types of ways you can buy digital out-of-home, the types of audiences you can target, is that something that clients are looking for? Is that something that you're seeing more and more of?
Yeah, look, we've seen more and more audience buying, that's for sure, but let's not take anything away. We still like retail, roadside, high, we call it high impact, but large format. We still see a lot of that still getting sold, and I think being able to sell that in the same way the traditional out-of-home buyers are still buying, but also have an audience component, I think it's imperative for all these buyers moving forward.
Right. And so, there's this potential shift away from a loop to more kind of flexible and targeted buying habits. Do you think it creates, or do you think it has an impact on pricing models at all? Maybe we'll start with Sam.
I might have already answered that. Yeah, look, I think probably, and I might be preempting a future question, but I think if we look back on this time in maybe 5-10 years' time, we'll be wondering, how we actually got away with selling time on screens. Like, It's really clear that the market's going in a certain direction. I don't want out of home to be the last analog buy in a digital world, and it requires the shift which this conference is talking about to actually make that happen. So, and it requires a shift to metrics that are performance-based, and that means pay for performance, ultimately. And so unless the technology actually supports that and the stack supports that and the trading model shifts, we're not going to be there. And actually the threat is that people who can do it better than us, we heard about, you know, the size of Meta and Google and so forth, like they do that stuff just for everybody. We heard from people that, you know, the tech is hard. It's really hard to build that feedback loop for performance right now. So we've got to get better at that as an industry to be able to stop, you know, somebody coming in and just eating our lunch basically, because they do it every day for every client, not just the special ones.
Right. Yeah. And you know, are there any new ways that you think campaigns will be measured, or do you think there's a new measure of success that comes from going from buying spots in a loop to buying impressions, buying audiences, buying XYZ? Do you think there are new ways that campaigns will be measured and new ways that, new success metrics that will come from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think brand recall, footfall. To your point, acquisition is definitely things that are going to be looked at. But from what we can see at the moment, the other channels like TV buyers come in and they talk about all the time. They talk about coupling your TV buy with out of home, because they see out of home, particularly digital out of home, is on this trajectory. So they're trying to get on that board as well. So if the more we see that happening, I think we're going to have to look at metrics of TV and out of home and audio as well. And I don't know how, particularly in the TV side of things, there's a lot going on in terms of measurement. So there'll need to be a catch-all that comes in. Who that is, what that is, who knows? But there'll need to be that one point of measurement across all these different channels, because people now, marketers are getting a lot more smarter. They want absolute efficiency for every dollar that they're spending. So if they're giving us XYZ in money to be bought across all these different channels, I don't want fragmented measurement. They just want, just one, tell me if it worked or not.
Right. And are you finding that in digital out of home, if you have a buyer who's buying cross-channel, right, is the buying mechanism, let's say a spot in the loop or some sort of share of voice, share of time, is that different enough that the buyer can't measure it in terms of how it relates to the other channels that they're buying, or have we solved that problem already?
You tell me, we both know. But I think, I think until we get away from that loop, you won't be able to measure it like all the other digital channels, to be honest. But back to your point before on buying, buying models and things like that, I think if we step away from the loop and start looking at more performance metrics, like trying to nail that outcome, we'll see the bidding on those spots in the loop will just go through the roof. Right. Instead of having this flat CPM of X, if you're trying to target me for Air Maxes or whatever it is, and I'm sitting at I'll say City of Sydney, just for you there, Whitey. I'll say I'm sitting at a bus stop in City of Sydney, and I'm getting those ads there, but I'm also getting them on my phone to target me. Like, it'll be huge.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be a conference in the year 2025 without mentioning AI at least 3 to 4 times. I think I heard it twice already today, so this is number 3 at least for me. But AI and the use of AI in buying and selling digital out of home, Sam, I'll throw this to you first. Does that type of technology actually make the loop obsolete?
Not in and of itself. I think AI is part of this trend within this industry. Like I haven't actually been in the industry very long, but in the short time I've been in the industry, I've seen the tech capabilities escalate on both the buy side and the sell side. And I think AI is part of that. And I think what will occur because of AI is probably just an acceleration of the ability for providers such as myself to connect with, deeply meaningful ways with buyers. Yeah. It's going to accelerate that, and it's going to challenge existing supply chains. It's really going to possibly rewrite the way that we connect with each other. So there's potential for disintermediation for existing players. There's potential for things to become a little bit more one-on-one. So the jobs that used to be done in the supply chain, aggregation, ease of use, that sort of stuff can be taken over potentially by AI tooling. So that's kind of, I think, where it will play in. It's a sort of shallow way, but it's
sure, yeah.
Yeah, but compared to the gravity of the question, but the fact is that it's just going to make things easier, and as technological maturity rises across the board, across the industry, we're just going to find easier ways to connect to each other without intermediation. So if you're in the value chain of supply, you need to be thinking about how that might impact you and what else you can do to value add as an intermediary. And there's some great examples of that out there. Yeah.
And just your quick opinion, do you think that will happen faster, or do you think it'll take longer than people think it will?
So the blocker really is the appetite for it. It's not the ability to stand up the technology. So it's all tied back to how we prefer to trade as an industry. And so if a programmatic buy is kind of averaging out at around 20K, 30K, whatever it is, that's really not enough to drive that forward because the investment is quite high. Now the investment costs are going down in that area, but the needle has to move on the proportion that want that level of intelligence. Not the artificial intelligence, the data intelligence, the capability to do things like granular targeting, real-time responsiveness to audiences, that sort of stuff. So, which I know you've got a big opinion. Yeah. You got some opinions about.
I've got enough time for my.
No, and just to kind of riff off that, Nick, I'm sure AI is a massive topic when it comes to meeting with clients, especially in this year. Are you seeing that as a potential accelerant towards further impression-based buying, audience targeting, DCO, all the things that we've been talking about the whole day? Is that going to kind of usher into a new way of transacting digital out-of-home that probably would not include a spot in the loop, given you would need a lot of flexibility to deliver such sophisticated types of buys?
Yeah, look, AI, I think it's twofold. I think AI creative, that's coming really quickly. Like that for out of home, that'll be like ChatGPT, it'll be honest like that. In terms of performance AI, is that what you mean in the loop? So yeah. In terms of performance AI, I think we've still got a little bit more time with that. We're actually, WPP's testing that in another market at the moment. We've managed to talk to a supplier in a South American market actually that is giving us all the spots in the loop where we can do that. We're using a proprietary AI that we spoke about before, Copilot. We're using that to target these people with the right message, right time, and with that outcome. In terms of bringing that here, I can't see it happening too soon. I do think, and I'm not just saying this because Sam's here, I do think probably the retail media guys will get onto that first because they've got that captive audience and they own the screens in those centres and things like that. But I can't see it happening, not this year.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think of all the digital kind of first and forward concepts that have been talked about today, DCO, audience buying, et cetera, I think I assume we were still kind of just scratching the surface on those types of buys and using those different features. But let's fast forward a little bit and say that those types of features are becoming requirements, or we're seeing them in higher and higher volume. Is the industry actually prepared for a world or a shift towards a higher level of volume of audience-led buying, buys that include DCO for every single creative that's served? How prepared is the industry for a shift such as that, if it were to happen in the next couple of years?
Look, that's a great question. Look, I can only talk from one side. I think it's fairly prepared. I think the OMA does a really great job of herding cats. Let's be honest. And I think I work across a number of different industry bodies just with the nature of my job, and I think the out-of-home industry is definitely the closest one. Like, I use that term frenemies, but you see everybody sitting together, and everybody does work in unison to get to the same place. So I think in terms of out-of-home, I think it's going to come a lot quicker than in terms of Australia, I think it's going to happen a lot quicker than other markets.
Sam, comments on that?
What was the question again?
How quickly do you think, or if a shift towards impression and audience-based buying were to accelerate, and we saw more volume than what we do today, right? How prepared is the industry for such a shift? Let's say from the supply side.
Well, I mean, I think we saw the stat at the start of the day, the percentage that were actually enabled for programmatic. That's effectively
right
how ready we are.
Yeah.
And honestly, for most suppliers, that's like a particular proportion of the loop. I think that stat was up there too.
Yeah.
So, it's around 70% at 10% of their loop, right? Or equivalent inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably not enough, right? Like if we're talking about trying to drive serious volume into the channel through that sort of advanced buying technique,
yeah.
It's quite possibly not enough. So, yeah, I think the supply side has to do a better job. We're doing it. There's different factors that push us to do that, but
Sure.
out of necessity, we're in that place now. So we're kind of ready. And I'd encourage anybody who wants to find out what we've done on the supply side to have a chat and talk to us about where we've gone.
Amazing. Well, I think we're running up against time here, so we're going to close with, if we were to look a few years into the future, let's say 5 years from now, what becomes of the loop? Is the loop actually dead, or is there a different variation? What do you think?
Hopefully, programmatic's 30% of it.
Okay. Yeah. The magic 30% number.
Yeah. No, look, look. The loop's still going to be there. There's still a spot for that. It's kind of like that same old linear TV. There's always going to be a spot for these types of buys. But I do think it more and more as marketers get smarter and clients get smarter, they are looking at these ways to buy. They're a lot more efficient. So they're probably, instead of having one place in the slot, there'll be a few more, maybe 50-50. Is it 5 years, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, hopefully more than 50-50, to be honest. But I still think that there's always going to be room to have loop-based buying, but it is changing.
Yeah, interesting. Sam, closing thoughts?
Yeah, there's probably still a role for share of voice.
Sure.
Not the loop, really. Not from an implementation standpoint. Look, I think the pressures that will be applied to out-of-home over that 5-year period are going to kind of decide where we end up. Yeah. And I think I opened with something like, we don't want to be the last analog buy in a digital world, and if we don't move, then as an industry we've got a problem. Yeah. Look, I think. Will the loop be gone? No, share of voice won't be gone. I'm just hoping that more sense is made out of the way we trade. Yeah.
Amazing. So is the loop dead? We'll let you all decide. Thank you very much. Thanks to the panel.